Another patch, another tier list. This is the last patch before we get into VCT Iceland, so let's get an idea of what agents are strong before the pro play meta influences who we will see in our games for the rest of Act 3. What is going on, ProGuides family? It is your host Sergeant Frost, and today we have the patch 2.09 tier list. We're going to rank these based on who we think will have the most success in ranked games, while still noting agent potential but thinking a little more about agent practicality. Let's start this off with the S tier. Starting off our S tier, this patch is Sage, climbing to the top of our tier list. Sage has been killing it right now in ranked games, sporting the highest win rates across the board in all ranks. Not only is she the best sentinel, but her viability in every situation reflects how well she has been doing in ranks so far in Act 3. Sage is one of the most versatile kits in the game, that works just as well on offense as it does on defense. She is at the top of S tier mainly because of her ultimate, which has a massive momentum shift which can easily change the course of a round. On top of that, Sage has fared well on the new map Breeze, while the other sentinels in their utility don't fare as well on the new tropical map. Sage's wall and slows will always find a way to slow down an enemy team no matter the map she's on. And her wall also provides outplay potential by creating off angles on top of objects or by boosting her into exclusive positions. Another day, another Jett ranking in S tier. This placement of Jett in S tier is expected, because Jett is the queen of entry fragging right now and for several reasons. First off, Reyna was nerfed a while ago, Raze and Yoru are lackluster in the meta, and Phoenix is static in the meta. The second reason is due to the fact that Jett has the most mobility out of all the duelists and practically out of all the agents in the game. This quick mobility causes her to be explosive on entry while also slippery on defense. This allows for her to create space for her teammates and take engagements that most agents would not be able to get out of alive. Jett's dash is her get out of jail free card, and a good Jett player certainly knows how to make good use of it. Her ultimate is also a free guardian that will definitely help you squeeze more out of your force buys consistently. If you have watched pro Valorant player streams or content and have seen the chatter around Astra on social media, it's obvious how obnoxious this agent can be in the right hands. Astra mains are master manipulators of the map, and they know how to puppeteer their abilities to make going for map control an excruciating task for the other team, while making it an absolute breeze for her team. Astra has found herself as a defensive-minded controller that borderlines a sentinel agent. While her star's primary use is to be transformed into smokes, a lot of players are realizing that they are better used as traps when placed strategically. What I mean by that is that Astra mains are figuring out how to place their stars and choke points in small areas of the map so that they can be used as gravity wells or stuns to trap enemies and land free kills on them if her CC connects. Astra has only gotten buffs since she's been released, and that means she will stay in S tier for the time being. Before we enter the A tier, we've got a big announcement to make. We've recently teamed up with the headshot machine himself, Scream from Team Liquid, to make a comprehensive course on his favorite role, the Duelist class. You'll learn all the fundamentals of creating space and dictating the pace of the round with Duelists, and of course learn how Scream does what he does best, one-tapping heads off the server. So head over to our website ProGuides.com if you want to learn the way of the Duelist from the best in Europe. Starting off the A tier, let's talk about Sova. The Russian Hunter is moving down a tier this week to make room for Sage in the S tier. Sova is in A tier because his abilities are always useful both on offense and defense no matter the situation. In this meta, the initiators are having trouble finding their way because their kits are often meant for information gathering or locking down targets, but they still require a good team to take advantage of them. Meanwhile, the agents themselves don't have a lot of tools to take advantage of their own abilities. Sova's intelligence gathering is what separates him from the rest of the initiators, but his problem is that you must have great knowledge of all of his lineups, recon bolt spots, and you must know how to be efficient with his drone in order to make him work. While this makes him an OP agent in pro play, in solo queue it's much harder to find consistent value out of his kit unless you know a lot of lineups that you can take advantage of. Phoenix, the most consistent agent in the game. Phoenix has been a staple in the meta for a very long time now, and ever since Reyna got nerfed, his pick rate in solo queue has only gotten higher with every passing act. Phoenix brings a lot to the table with his kit. His flashes make him excellent at taking duels, his damage utility makes him great at holding choke points while defending, and his ultimate is one of the best ultimates among the duelists. Since Yoru has consistently struggled to find his footing in the current meta, Phoenix is still the best flash-based duelist in the entire class. If you want a consistent agent that won't let you down in solo queue, there really is no better agent than Phoenix to show you how the boss does it. Fresh off some nerfs in patch 2.09, we have Viper. I will admit, these nerfs do affect her abilities a bit, but they don't hurt Viper at all in the meta. In this patch, Viper's toxins were changed from instantly decaying 50 HP to just 30 HP. Although the 20 HP decay is somewhat significant, as this is basically a 40% nerf, I would say that this doesn't affect her viability nearly as much. In most situations, if someone walks through your poison, even if they had 150 HP, they would still be 4-shot at worst and 2-shot with the Vandal. Viper is still going to stay in A tier after her rework, because players are starting to catch on to the fact that Viper functions more like a sentinel than she does a controller, while still having the ability to do controller duties. And her toxin buff she got in her rework made her a lot scarier than she ever was in the past. In fewer words, don't freak out gamers. Just because Viper is getting balanced through numbers doesn't mean she's going to become irrelevant. In fact, if she wasn't nerfed this patch, we were thinking she would make a push for the S tier if anything else. However, she was nerfed, so she stays in the A tier for the time being. Killjoy is still without a doubt one of the best defensive agents in the game. Even though Sage definitely takes the top spot for the Sentinels and Viper started to replace her as a sight denial agent on defense, she is nowhere near unviable for the defensive agents. Killjoy still has the best ult in the game that's basically a free sight execute, and the damage and autonomy her kit brings still makes her a go-to pick for a consistently high value agent. Her turret is also a great tool for information gathering, which means she will always have some form of value to provide herself or her team. If you want an agent that can consistently bring results and is more or less viable on every map, Killjoy is a great agent to have in your arsenal. Closing out the A tier is Omen, and man has a spooky ghost been neglected in the meta. Honestly, Omen has not been able to catch a break in episode 2. First, Brimstone got buffed and his smokes became better than Omen's. Then, Omen got nerfed and his cornerstone blind ability got its price doubled. Then, Astra came out and people realized she can do a lot more than Omen can both on offense and defense. Then, the final nail in the coffin was Viper getting reworked, which pushed Omen further down the totem pole of relevancy in the controller meta. Omen's smokes are still consistent, but he is still not the go-to controller in the game anymore. Every single other controller is capable of doing something he can't. Yet, despite these hits to Omen's viability, his abilities are still great for a more selfish controller agent. Add on mobility and outplay potential, and Omen is by no means out of the game just yet. But admittedly, he's still seriously overshadowed by all the other controllers in terms of being an actual controller. Now, let's move on to the B tier. Although Reyna has been nerfed to make her playmaking not nearly as sustainable, Reyna in the right hands is still a scary agent to play against. However, Reyna as an agent is sort of hard to judge objectively, because most complaints with Reyna is when higher elo smurfs stomp games with her and it's hard to shut down her momentum. Reyna's downfall is that unless she's able to consistently find kills, she doesn't get much value out of her kit, which makes her just a walking ability-less agent. Her Leer is quite weak when used alone and doesn't really help Reyna make plays. If anything, Reyna's design requires her to get a lot more support from her teammates so that she can get the ball rolling, which is counterintuitive to what she is actually known for, which is being a solo carry menace. Unless she has her support, she lacks the tools to really outplay or outduel any agents because her kit has such low base value, which is why she currently sits in B tier. Raze is in B tier because she is still one of the most one-dimensional and straightforward duelists in the game, but that does not make her bad necessarily. Yet she still does lack flashes, healing abilities, and reliable escapes. This hurts her as an agent because she can't get the ball rolling if she takes too much damage, and she can't create space or heal herself like Phoenix and Reyna can. But she does make up for it in her damage utility and her aerial mobility. She might not need flashes to break into a bomb site when instead she can fly in like a warthog plane and surprise the enemies with a flying Raze. Raze isn't a bad duelist by any means. She's just pigeonholed into an identity that is not as versatile or dynamic in comparison to other duelists in the game. Brimstone is in B tier this time because he is one of the most beginner-friendly agents in the game, and it's really easy to use his kit and not mess up with it. He's not the worst controller currently, but he's not the best one either. A lot of his kit revolves around helping his teammates with his stim and smokes, and using his molly and ult and post plants to ward off enemies. Brimstone is stable in the meta, and honestly, you will see him a lot more in lower elos of solo queue than you will in the higher ranks. This is also why you barely see him in pro play as well. Brimstone is a great agent to use for anyone who is new to the controller class and wants to learn how to be a main smoker in the simplest way possible. His tools, while elementary and not very versatile, still have very clear uses that come up in games consistently. We may have bashed him a little too hard in past tier lists because of the surgence of Viper and Astra in the meta, but he is still a very great pick for an easy controller agent with decent utility. Rounding out the B tier, we have Cypher. Cypher is still a great agent to use in game, but the problem with him is that Killjoy and Sage offer unique gameplay aspects in their kit that he just doesn't have. Killjoy has a lot of damage and the best ultimate in the game, and that allows her to have influence as long as she's alive. And Sage can heal everyone, stall the enemy team with CC, and she has a revive which can literally turn the tide of a match. Cypher is great at info gathering, but when his utility is gone or on cooldown, he's not very much an impactful agent. Additionally, he lacks attacker side of utility, which makes him somewhat of a liability for half of the game. This makes him much harder to use at times and hurts his placement. Now, let's wrap up the video with the C tier. Skye is once again in C tier because she is a great agent that does her job well, but she doesn't have enough positives to justify picking her over more contested meta agents right now. She isn't that popular in pro play, and in solo queue she feels very hit or miss. You can't ever really say that you straight up won or lost a game because of a Skye player. Ever since she came out, her pick rate and win rate has been very low, and I think we all know why. She just doesn't fill a specific role within a team comp, and a lot of players are starting to realize that. She's a jack of all trades but a master of none. I mean, most players that play her just want her heal and flashes, but her other abilities are not very useful for information gathering, even though they are made to do so. I think that her ability set, while useful in structured teams, lacks value in a pug environment, which makes her feel very clunky to play and hard to use. Okay, Yoru is a certified oddball in the Valorant roster. No one in the community is able to assess if he's trash, average, or overpowered in the current meta. Yoru has gotten a slew of buffs in the past 2 acts, and he seems to be a lot more usable than he was in the past. The problem is, he can't find a way to beat out the more popular duelists, and he struggles to perform consistently in-game. He currently has abysmal win rates across all elos despite his recent buffs, and a lot of people haven't found ways to make him work on certain maps competitively. Honestly, it seems like the design of his kit might not be as viable as his agent design hoped to make it. I struggle to figure out the best ways to combine all of his abilities together to get the most use out of them in-game. His ultimate is stronger now that he has Gatecrash to escape, but this makes his ultimate only for information gathering and not actually to entry a site, which is bad. I truly don't know what Yoru needs to become an S-tier agent. Maybe he needs a ground-up rework with totally new abilities. Maybe his kit needs more number changes. But I hope Riot will figure it out eventually. His design as an agent is too cool not to be utilized as a mascot for Valorant out of game. Last but not least, we have the cyborg Breach. Breach is like Azir from League of Legends. He is terrible in solo queue, but he is godlike in pro play. This is mainly due to how the nature of his kit works. A lot of Breach's abilities can damage or negatively affect his teammates. This means that he requires a lot of communication between teammates in order to make sure they aren't hindered by his abilities in the middle of a round. A Breach player needs to quickly and accurately describe when, where, and how he's going to use his abilities, and his teammates need to first make sure that they aren't caught in the crossfire, and secondly, make sure they are ready to push and capitalize off his CC. Breach is a great agent, don't get me wrong. He's just very hard to make work in solo queue unless you're playing in a 5-stack with friends and you're all talking in game. He currently has one of the lowest win rates along with Yoru, and it seems like some agents just aren't meant for pug lobbies. Well guys, that's all we have for the patch 2.09 tier list. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to hit the bell notification icon to stay ahead of all the competition with the latest Valorant news, updates, and guides. This has been your host Sergeant Frost with the tier list, and I will see you all in the next one.